Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, your home for movie news, reviews, and movie fan views. This is the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I am your host, Ryan Dunlevy, joined as always by my co-host, Rob Dunham.
Hello.
All right. We've got an excellent show. We're going to talk about the box office, a interesting landing spot for Spiderman for streaming. We will get into the legend that is John Williams and, of course, our watch list. All right, Rob, let's tackle the box office first. Does that sound good?
It does.
All right. So one of the questions we asked in last week's podcast, if you happen to check that out, is there still a market for the Jackass brand? Apparently, the answer is absolutely, there still is. First at the box office this week, $23.2 million.
And I would like to point out that I believe if you watched last week's podcast, I said it would make between $20 and $30 million. So
yes, you did.
I'm pretty good about myself right now.
Kudos to Rob. Yes, very, very well played, sir. Very well played. I honestly was a little skeptical. I was a little skeptical, but it delivered. It delivered. Apparently, there is still an audience for it, and it did quite well. Coming in at number 2 was Moonfall at $9.9 million. Number 3, Spider-Man, still hanging in there at 9.5, Scream at 4.8, and Sing 2 at 4.5 to round out the top 5. So Rob, what do you make of box office? Anything, any more gloating you want to do about your prediction?
I'm not super surprised by anything that happened in the box office. So I don't know if there's a whole lot to say.
Yeah.
It's just, it is impressive that Sing, Spider-Man continue to just chug along there, especially Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It had legs, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I guess you will be wanting to talk about Moonfall.
Yes, we will be discussing Moonfall later.
Yeah, so I'm taking it you are not particularly surprised by the results for Moonfall for this week.
I'm not. I didn't think it was going to do a big number. They probably hoped it would do better than it did.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really surprised. I don't think there was a huge amount of anticipation for the movie. And anyone who was hugely anticipating it was probably anticipating seeing it because they knew it was not going to be good. And so I don't think word of mouth is going to be very big on Moonfall either. So I don't think it's going to last too long or do very well.
Yeah. I thought maybe it would do a little bit better than this because there hadn't been a ton of new movies out in recent weeks. So if you were looking for new movies and buffoonery and pranksterness is not your style, I was thinking maybe it would garner some attention, but alas, it did not do that much. So yeah, nothing too shocking for this week's results. So let's talk about the movies coming out this week, and there are 3. That's right, there are 3. First, we have Death on the Nile, and this is the another Poirot movie. It's kind of a follow-up to the one with Kenneth Braga as playing Poirot. He is back to reprise his role, investigating, this time on a cruise ship in the Nile. And there's a pretty big cast in this one. It also has Gal Gadot, which we don't know how to get back into her pronunciation again. It has her in it. It has Annette Bening. It has Tom Bateman. Russell Brand is in this one. So it has a pretty decent cast coming out to it. Again, this is a murder mystery novel based on Agatha Christie. So that is Death on the Nile. The next one is Marry Me. and this one stars Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson in what is sure to be just an absolute match made in heaven with that particular couple, because who doesn't see Owen Wilson and J-Lo together? Yes, this is a rom-com. Music superstar Kat Valdez and Bastian are getting married before a global audience of fans. But when Kat learns seconds before her vows that Bastian has been unfaithful, she decides to marry Charlie, a stranger in the crowd, instead. So there you go. There you go. That is Marry Me. And the third one is it's called Blacklight. Blacklight stars Liam Neeson and Adrian Quinn, and as Travis Block is a government operative coming to terms with his shadowy past. When he discovers a plot targeting U.S. citizens, Block finds himself in the crosshairs of an FBI director he once helped to protect. So in other words, it's a Liam Neeson movie.
Yes.
Yes. All right, Rob. Those are your three choices. Break them down for me.
So the one I'm most interested in seeing is Death on the Nile, because I really enjoyed Kenneth Branagh's portrayal of Poirot in Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
And looking forward to seeing that character more. Some people think that it was too over the top. Some people think you didn't do well enough. There are other actors who have portrayed this role that people like more, but I think he did well in it, and his mustache is awesome. And it's a very interesting cast for sure. And I really enjoy the source material as well. So I'm interested in seeing how they put Death on the Nile on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Marry Me, I'll probably maybe watch at some point with my wife, I'm sure. But I don't think I'm in a rush to go see it in the theater. I possibly might, but it's not on the top of my list. And Liam Neeson, I just have to go watch that just for Liam Neeson, because Liam Neeson movies are fun.
They are.
Because they have Liam Neeson in them. That's about all we need. He's definitely in like Nick Cage territory.
Mm-hmm.
As I need to go watch that because he's in it.
Yeah. 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 Liam Neeson is still toting the line of like, he's on brand with this being a Liam Neeson movie, but he hasn't quite crossed over into the realm of the absurd that Nick Cage has gone to. But it's possible he gets there. Yeah. Death on the Nile for me is the number one attraction. I agree with all of what you're saying. I love murder mysteries. I love mystery type movies. I thought the Poirot character was very engaging in Murder on Orient Express. I thought it was an interesting movie and a really classic whodunit. You don't get a lot of classic whodunit type stories. So I'm guessing we're going to get something very similar with Death on the Nile, which is absolutely perfectly fine with me. Like I said, it's a favorite type genre, and I think the cast and the characters that appeared so far in the trailers are absolutely worthy of this being an excellent movie. So I'm looking forward to it, and I have high hopes that it's going to be above average. That it's going to be good. That it's going to be a good movie. Marry Me looks pretty terrible. I mean, even from rom-com standpoint, I mean. I'm going to marry a random stranger, and the random stranger is Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson and J-Lo. I mean, is there possibly any chemistry there? I mean, these movies are all about the chemistry between the two actors, and I cannot imagine there's a ton of chemistry between J-Lo and Owen Wilson. It is remarkable how many like romance roles a person with Owen Wilson's face gets. I mean, like, it's really fascinating, but I like it.
I'm intrigued and amazed by the fact that Jennifer Lopez seems to not age.
This is true. Yeah.
She's been like 35 for like 40 years or something. I don't know.
I know, right? It's it's like the reverse of those like old man actors who they look old when they're like 40 and they just stay looking the exact same for the next 40
Yeah.
years. Yeah. Yeah. It's really that is a fascinating thing. And when was the last movie J Lo was in? I mean, she had her brief movies here and there, Wedding Planner, those sort of things.
She was in a movie last year, a couple years ago, that focused on girls at a strip club who made money by seducing men, getting them drunk, and stealing their money. But I don't remember what the name of that was, but it was interesting.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Blacklight is, yeah, it's a Liam Neeson movie. You know what you're going to get, and it's going to be interesting. And so I'm intrigued enough with that one that if I were to get some chance, I would go for it. So yeah, Death on the Nile first, Blacklight second for me, and Marry Me if I'm incredibly bored, or my wife really wants to stay.
We are in agreement there.
All right. So that's the box office. And if you get a chance, go out and see one of these fine movies this coming weekend. Moving on, there is an interesting development when it comes to Spider-Man. It has been revealed the location of Spider-Man's No Way Home streaming service, and it will not be Netflix. It will not be Disney Plus. It will, in fact, be Starz. Interesting. Yes, No Way Home as first streaming service is going to be Starz. And in terms of timeline, it's basically sometime in the next 6 months. So don't hold your hopes out that it's coming right around the corner. But it's interesting. And the quote from the Starz CEO is this: while films seem to provide ours is a retention game, not an acquisition game, lining up content week to week, 52 weeks a year, seeking to move our core audience from one show to the next. So this is a big deal for Starz. You put the right shows and the right content around it so that you can move customers to watch Spider-Man into one of your original movies. So for Starz, this is really about bringing people to the service so that they can see whatever else is on the service. So this is a big get for Starz. What do you make of it?
Well, I believe this is only due to the fact that they had a contract in place with them.
Yes.
So Marvel and Sony's hands are basically tied on this, which I'm sure they're not really happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Starz may be trying to spin it as a positive, but probably only positive for them. And as much as Spider-Man has a huge following, I don't really think that it will make a huge difference in like Starz subscriptions, because there's so much else around that I don't think people are going to jump on that just for one movie.
Yeah. And Starz is not a bad streaming service. It's pretty good in terms of movies that they run, and it just got some half decent original shows. I just had a couple months of cheap Starz that I went through, and there's a decent amount on there. It's not a bad service, but it definitely doesn't have the cachet of like Netflix or HBO Max or anything along those lines. Or definitely not Disney Plus. So it will be interesting to see if this does move the needle for Starz or if it doesn't. I'm with you. I'm not convinced there's a giant move towards it. But if it's done right, I think they will get some subscribers. If they team it with some sort of package or some sort of deal, there's a way that they can market this that would bring Spider-Man fans to the streaming service, and then see how it goes. I think there's a pathway forward for this working. I just don't know if it's going to have the dramatic impact they want. But hey, I mean, it's the biggest movie that's come out since the pandemic. So if any movie is going to make a difference for them, it's definitely going to be this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that is Spider-Man news. Let's move on to our discussion. And this comes out of a milestone that happened this week in the entertainment world. John Williams, the famous composer, turns 90. Yes, he
Wow.
turned 90 this week. I knew he had to be getting up there. But yeah, John Williams turns 90. And for my money, John Williams is the best, most recognizable movie composer of all time. Now, I don't know, maybe there's somebody in the 20s and 30s who had a big deal, but I don't think so. I think John Williams is the biggest deal that it gets. And so I thought we'd spend a few moments just kind of walking through some of the legacy of John Williams. And we're gonna talk about some of our favorite soundtracks. But let's start with this question. What for you, Rob, what makes John Williams so special?
I think that he is able to capture the scope of what he is translating from the screen into music in a way that very few people are capable of.
Yeah.
I think Hans Zimmer has some similar qualities, but I think John Williams is even better in this regard, just that he is able to write music that is very close feeling for things that are small, but very large feeling for things that are big and epic. And able to come up with very simple melody lines that just stick in your head. And when you hear them, you instantly are taken to those places, those moments, those feelings. And I just think he's honestly a genius when it comes to being able, like I said, to translate a visual into a musical lead.
Yeah, for me it comes down to memorability. John Williams has an unbelievable ability to create thematic elements that just stick in your brain, lodge in your brain. You think almost any soundtrack where you can say, oh, I can sing along to that theme from a movie, almost guarantee that it's John Williams. I mean, you're saying Hans Zimmer is probably second up there when it comes to next to John Williams, but it's hard to get any of Hans Zimmer's scores in your head when you see this. So John Williams just had this ability to create a sweeping score that not only captures the moment, but to create a melody and a theme that just sticks with you and associates so dramatically with that particular film or with that particular franchise. And you can have great scores that you don't remember, that don't get stuck in your head, and they can be great for the movie, but his music just transcends the movie in ways that most other composers are not capable of delivering. And even years down the road, you can still remember it. If you say Star Wars to somebody, instantly you can think of the music. If you say Superman, the Superman theme. Even right now, we're watching the Olympics. John Williams did the NBC Olympic theme. All of the famous movie soundtracks that just stick in your head were all John Williams. All right, so let's go through John's score. So let's talk about this. Let's go back and forth on some of our favorite John Williams scores. What's one that you pick out?
So I'm not going to go with my favorite to start out.
Okay.
But there are several. But one of my favorite movies of all time is The Empire Strikes Back. And the soundtrack for that movie, the Imperial March, especially dun 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 dun. Just like, man, it's so good. It's so good how it just brings you into that moment of, these are the bad guys. You should be feeling bad right now. This should make you feel uncomfortable. It does a great job of that, and I really appreciate too taking that. I actually have that soundtrack on vinyl and listening to the extended versions of the songs, like the whole song. You don't hear that in the movie, obviously, because you can't play you can't in the background play a whole 2-hour long soundtrack during a movie. It's just not going to work. So they use elements of it for scenes in the movie. but hearing the compositions in full, how they start, how they build, how they come down, how they build again, how they finish. All of the Star Wars soundtracks are good. But I would have The Empire Strikes Back as my favorite, and that's, I'm very biased.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some stuff also in the prequels that is insanely good.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it'd be The Empire Strikes Back, my favorite Star Wars soundtrack. It's not my favorite John Williams soundtrack, which that a little bit, but it's up there.
Mm-hmm. For me, I'm going to start out with Jurassic Park. Really, really love the soundtrack to Jurassic Park. That it weaves the mood. It weaves the this is special, this is interesting, this is different. It just carries the weight and the emotion to it as you're going through it. It really is very, very memorable. And it ties together this unique concept in a movie that's so much about the visuals. The soundtrack and the score just really, really, really take it up to another notch.
No, now that you've stolen my favorite,
go ahead and talk about
it. Yeah, Jurassic Park is my favorite soundtrack by John Williams, and the one that you mentioned right there is obviously the keystone to the whole soundtrack. But talking, this kind of relates to those movies, and it relates to the Star Wars movies that you had said memorability, and I think that's such a big thing because those little motives that he writes, whether it's Luke's song or Leia's song or the Jurassic Park theme, or the Imperial March, they've been used then in later newer movies from the same series.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear just that little hint and it brings everything back.
Yeah.
Right away. And I remember, I would not say that the new Jurassic World movies are like up to Jurassic Park level. I still enjoy them. I think they're at that standard, but when you heard in the trailer for the first one, that old theme come
Mm-hmm.
in, it was just like, it just gets you excited. Like it's a moment to have hope, to be thrilled again, and it transports you back to when you saw the original movies. So that's something I like about what he's done in the Jurassic series and in the Star Wars series, that you're able to just, like in the new Star Wars movies, when Luke showed up, you just hear that little motive in the background. You're like, oh, yep, I know that. It's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, totally. What else you got? What's your next one?
So Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
Yep.
That's my favorite of the Indiana Jones ones, but his music in all of them is great.
It really is.
And the Indiana Jones theme itself is just fantastic. So there's so many, it's hard to just pick a few,
Yeah,
because I feel like we could talk for an hour just about John Williams.
We really could. Yeah, the next one for me is going to be Home Alone, and I've talked about this a number of times, especially around the Christmas episodes, but just the way he leads you into it. I mean, that bit that's like dun, 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 it's both simultaneous for like sneaking around, burglary, mischief, and Christmas, all wrapped into one little theme. And there's another one where the notes he strikes on the emotional elements of Home Alone just really bring it home. It really, really brings it home. And the more I watch this movie, the more I appreciate how much of the specialness of Home Alone was carried through John Williams' score. And it's fascinating that they were just kind of, the producers were just kind of brainstorming, oh yeah, we should get John Williams to do the score, not thinking he would do it. And then he saw the script, was like, oh, this looks like a lot of fun, and he did it. And that just, I mean, it really punched up the movie to the next level.
Yeah, like I said, it's incredible that we're through all these things, and there's still so much more. Like you haven't even mentioned E.T.
Mm-hmm.
There's just the sheer volume of classic quality work that he has done is hard to really comprehend.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention, you have some Harry Potter,
Mm-hmm.
Jaws. I mean, the Jaws theme. I mean, if there's not a more like iconic theme than the shark arriving.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so it's really fascinating, and I mean, and we didn't even talk about Superman. The Superman theme. How can you not mention Superman theme? I mean, he's so good. It's really really special. I'll link to a list of favorite John Williams scores that IMDb did, and take a look at it. Just the remarkable work that this guy's doing. He's still going too. He's not done. He's not retired yet. He's still on it. Any last thoughts on John Williams?
Just that he's amazing and ridiculous, and I hate him for how talented he is.
Yeah, we're all better for John Williams being around, and glad he can celebrate his 90th birthday.
Yes, happy birthday!
Happy birthday, John. All right, let's move on to our watch list. Movies that we've watched over the last week, with a little breakdown of what we thought. Rob, do you want to go first on this one?
Do I want to? No. Will I? Sure. Well, first of all, last night I saw Nightmare Alley again, and
okay.
Man, I like this movie a lot. It just came out. We didn't talk about. We should probably talk about the nominations for the Oscars next episode.
Yes, that's the point
this week. But it was nominated for Best Picture and well deserving, in my opinion. It is unlike anything Guillermo del Toro has done before. Very much a period noir piece. Feels old timey, feels just classic. I don't think Bradley Cooper is phenomenal in it, but he's very good in it. Cate Blanchett, I think, is excellent in the movie as the villain. But really, the main villain is Bradley Cooper. He's his own worst enemy. And the movie definitely has an emotional punch to it at the end, and is strong throughout. Musically, cinematography is excellent. I believe it was nominated for Best Cinematography as well.
Okay.
So I highly recommend seeing Nightmare Alley. If you have HBO Max, it is on HBO Max. So give it a chance. I really hope they release a version of it in black and white, because I like the black and white version even more than the color version. And then the other movie that I saw this week was Moonfall, which not many people saw apparently. I was in an IMAX theater, and there were a total of 7 people there.
Okay.
On Friday night, on opening night.
Yeah,
so
that's a rough one.
Probably not a great indicator there. I don't even know where to begin with this movie, other than to say it is everything I hoped it would be, and I was hoping it would be an unmitigated disaster, and it was, and I loved it so much. There's none of this movie makes sense. Halle Berry plays the director of NASA, which is totally believable and not at all unbelievable, because she also played Catwoman once.
Yeah.
The dialogue in this movie, it's almost like a work of art how bad it is. A couple of my favorite lines from the movie. One was, I just want to hear you say you don't hate me. I don't hate you. I'll take it.
That's solid writing.
Cool. And then with the spoiler alert if you're gonna watch the movie, because this is part of, I guess, like the denouement, the big climax of the movie. The one character asks, "Am I dead?" And the response is, "We uploaded your consciousness. You're part of the moon now." I don't really have any further comment beyond just saying that's a line from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't recommend that you watch it, but I do in the sense that every once in a while it's really good to watch a movie that's really bad to remind you that they exist.
Yep.
Because I think it can be easy to get trapped in the skill of watching only good movies and being like, oh, why do I think every movie is good? Because you're probably watching good movies.
Indeed.
And I mean, there's a genre of movies that are bad on purpose, right?
Yes.
Like B movies, we call them, where they're trying to be bad. This was not that. This was a movie that was taking itself seriously, and it was just not good. Which is exactly what I expected. There were some amazing visuals of the world getting destroyed.
Yeah.
And especially of the moon getting closer and closer to the Earth and the effect it was having on the Earth. That was cool. But overall, man, it was a disaster movie that was a complete disaster. 2 thumbs up. Paul.
So I didn't get to watch a ton. I did not get to watch a ton this week, but I continued to peruse the 90s movies, especially the ones on Disney Plus. And this week's edition is The Three Musketeers. Yes, the 1993 movie, The Three Musketeers, that starred Kiefer Sutherland. It had Oliver Platt. It had Chris O'Donnell, Charlie Sheen, Tim Curry. Really good cast.
Yeah, it was a good cast.
It was, I mean, and for being like basically a more of a kid, young adult type movie, it's well done. The actors play compelling characters. The story is interesting. The sword play is interesting enough. And this is tribute to the actors, each one of the characters, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, all had their own distinct personality, their distinct characters. They were all memorable. And the integration of Chris O'Donnell as D'Artagnan into the mix was fun and well done. I think the memorable scene of him showing up in Paris and ended up running into each one of those 3 guys and ending up with a duel with each one of them in the same day. It was kind of fun. But I do like it. It's not a world beater, but it was a well done 90s like kid young adult movie, and I think it holds up even now. And it's another one of those genres that we don't see as many movies produced for that genre.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I have to check that out sometime soon.
Yeah. All right, Rob, you got anything else?
I do not. I think we're gonna go watch a movie, maybe.
Oh yeah, sounds good. I think I will too. All right. That is all the show we have for you today. Thanks for tuning into Film for Fans. Make sure you check out filmforfans.com and tell your friends about the podcast and YouTube channel. We'd love to have you. Until next time, enjoy the movies.